I had actually finished another manuscript, and it was about three very different estranged sisters who were dealing with the death of their very eccentric mother. The manuscript was, I had revised it a billion times, and it felt like it was to the point where my agent was almost ready to send it out to publishers, and I just had to work on kind of tightening up a plot line that wasn't working. But as I was doing that and trying to figure out a way to fix it, I realized that it didn't transport me into the story as all the books that I had read as a kid. Maybe it was like that for you. When I was a kid and I was reading, the whole world just fell away. And I could be reading for 2 hours and it would feel like 5 minutes. Um, and you would feel almost like jet lagged afterwards, after coming out of that book and returning to reality. But I didn't feel like that with my manuscript, and I kept trying to fix it, trying to fix it, trying to fix it. And I realized that the only two things that really gave me that kind of glimmer of transcendence was a character named Peanut Bixton, who was a young girl in the story, one of the sisters, and this very secondary character who wasn't even important to the plot, but wrote these best-selling fantasy series that everyone seemed, like they couldn't get enough of. So after a lot of soul searching and feeling like I was going to throw up and hoping I wasn't making a huge mistake, I decided that I had put Peanut into the wrong story, and I kind of surgically removed her and started mostly from scratch and started the story I'm working on now. When I decided that I wanted Libby to be the one writing the books, I think it grew out of two things. I think writer's block is something that I struggle with in my life. So I was kind of channeling my own frustrations into her as a writer. But when I knew that the whole world had to be clamoring for these books and it had to be on par or even more than like Harry Potter mania when the Harry Potter books came out, I realized I really had to know what was in them. So I started kind of sketching out what the five Falling Children books would be and who the characters would be and who the villain would be. And then those kind of bled into the book. I found that in a way they inform Libby's character. You see what she writes and what is so important to her. And then the characters kind of come to life. I think that because I had done so much work on the previous manuscript, I had a sense of characters. Let's see if this analogy will work. Like a casting director will call in actors to see them for a part, and they might not be right for that part, but they like stick in their memory or they write a post-it on their note or make a, I don't know, they remember them. And then when a perfect part comes along, they know exactly who to call. Um, and I think that because of like, I don't know, all the projects I've stopped and started over the years, or all the short stories that I've written, or the manuscript that I had written before, I had just like, I felt very lucky that there were a lot of characters kind of waiting, waiting in my head, like, I'm right here when you need me. So it was easy to kind of call them up.
Who were some of those if you'd introduced us to them?
Yeah. So Peanut is the 11-year-old super fan of Libby's books. She's really feisty and fiery, and she has such a good grasp on everything that adults are doing wrong. And I think also has a lot of fears of growing up because she sees so many adults around her who are unhappy or bored or just have lost that sense of magic that kid and fun and playfulness that kids have. Um, she has two adopted siblings. One is Jessie, who life has not been kind to Jessie. She is beautiful and really smart, and she kind of has had to fight for everything that she gets. Not a favorite of her father. Uh, so I think that she has she's just one of those people that I think everything comes hard for, even though she's really trying and has a good heart. And then the other adopted sibling is Buzz, who is a skateboarder, same age as Jesse in the late 20s. Kind of happy-go-lucky, easygoing, kind of chill, removes himself, a little bit misanthropic, but like like Jesse, I think has a heart of gold and a lot of kindness, and they both have a lot of fondness for Peanut. Writing for magazines and having to do so many interviews where you just, well, you probably are the same way. Like you have to actively listen and you listen to people and the cadence of how they speak and their word choices. And I think that that has really been a masterclass for me. It's helped me so much writing dialogue to the point where dialogue is so much easier for me than plot. And I've actually wondered if I could write an entire book just in dialogue with no plot at all. Um, and I think it sounds kind of weird, but I think that texting also is a great way to learn dialogue. We're all on our screens right now, and there is such a shorthand that we use to communicate with each other, that bleeds into our real life. So I find that really helpful too. Libby, the one of the main characters, has been given a diagnosis of early onset dementia. She has horrible anxiety. So as her anxiety worsens because of her diagnosis, then her symptoms also, get worse at the same time. Um, I personally don't have a relative who has had dementia, but I have a heartbreaking number of friends, neighbors, professional colleagues who are all, have a loved one who is dealing with it. Um, I think the reason that this seated in my mind in the first place was I was doing interviews with people over the years, and so many people, it wasn't even tangential, if that's the right word, to the interview, but they would, it would just come up in conversation like that they were caring for someone or dealing with the grief of someone who had early onset dementia. I don't know, my heart just broke for them. It just seems like, I mean, I know that any medical condition affects the people around you as well as you, but it seems like dementia does that like 100-fold. Um, so although I don't have personal experience with it, I did research. The Alzheimer's Association was great with helping me do some fact checking. I tried to read, any time a profile came up where it was chronicling what it was like to have that diagnosis, I really, tried to read it and imagine what it would be like.